Okay, this is just a little bit of a deadlift workout I did shortly after rowing. Right now my focus is on rowing, so here I'm just playing around with 405 pounds, 16 reps, no belt, double overhand hook grip, fairly easy, probably could have gotten 20. Like I said, this is just, I'm not really focusing on the deadlift right now, but maintain a good level of strength. Again, I don't take drugs, I don't take steroids, I don't take hormones, never have, never will. And this is, again, after a hard rowing workout. And so my focus is, again, not on the deadlift, but still maintain a decent level of strength. And my diet is without carbohydrates, and you can do pretty decent stuff without the carbohydrates. Okay, just continuing on some of the more sort of basic beginner carnivore stuff. One of the questions I always get is, how much do I need to eat for X particular goal? I want to lose weight, I want to put on muscle, I want to have a certain percentage body fat. Again, if you go back to the video I did yesterday when I referenced, put those goals aside. But in general terms, and I really hesitate to give someone an exact macronutrient prescription. Just remember, things change daily in our lives that are going to change our requirements. How much activity are we doing that particular day? How much sleep did we get the night before? What kind of stressful things are happening? Even the temperature outside. If it's hotter out, you're going to want to produce less body heat. So all those things go into different requirements. Of how much nutrition you need. So these things are dynamic, and so I can't say every day you should be eating X amount and then taper it down by this amount. In general terms, we have to be a little more intuitive and a little bit more responsive to what's going on in the environment. And so, again, as a general rule, as a beginner, remember, we're trying to eat enough to make sure we're not having cravings. How much is enough? And again, that's going to vary from person to person. But as a sort of a general guideline, and I don't want anyone to take this as gospel, but I would say as most males, males just on average eat more than females. Most males should be getting around 2 pounds of meat a day. That's probably, and we can call meat however we want to do it. If it's fish or eggs, we can kind of make that up. But just shoot for about 2 pounds of animal-based food a day as a minimum. For males, for females, closer to 1.5 pounds. Again, this is as a beginner guideline. And then what happens is you really have to adapt based upon, one, your appetite. If you're still damn hungry and you're going to be, like I said, you're going to end up face down in a bucket of cupcakes if you don't take care of appetite. So we got to feed the appetite and make sure we're not hungry. But then other things that some people don't associate with food are things like fatigue, feeling down, just general lethargy. Often that is a sign you just haven't eaten enough. And so those are the things, that's how I tell people to sort of tailor, the diet. Now, again, as far as fat macros go, like I said, I was just doing a bunch of deadlifting. You saw that initial video. I'm rowing. I'm relatively lean. I'm not 6% body fat, but I'm 12-ish percent body fat. I think a pretty normal percent body fat for a human being, and I feel pretty comfortable there. If I get really lean, and I can do that if I want to, but for me to persistently be very lean, I just don't feel very good. I don't perform very good. So we have to kind of put our sort of our body composition goals in line with what our functional goals are. And so you can take a pretty picture and look good and be super lean, but if you feel not so good, I don't know how good of an idea that is to stay year round that way. So maybe if you've got a contest you got to do, you got to and unfortunately we have this sort of push to be super lean to where that is considered the ideal. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think there's a healthy level of body fat, and it doesn't necessarily have to be guys at 6% and girls at 12%. To me that's a little bit beyond what's normal physiology and not even healthy. So but let's say you've got 2 macronutrients now. You've got protein, you've got fat. Carbs are negligible. And later on maybe I'll talk about how carbohydrates in different foods may play a role in this. Again, this isn't dogma. This isn't oh my gosh, you ate a piece of fruit, you're going to die and you're going to be kicked out of the club. There are potential roles for that stuff, but for now, just sticking with fat and protein. And we're talking about a carnivore diet. Again, diet is again, this isn't a religion. So, I mean, what you end up doing what works for you best ultimately. But if you're, like I said, if you're really wanting to see how far you can go with carnivory, and I think it's a pretty good route for many people, even athletically, once you're adapted to it, you can play with protein, you can play with fat, you can ratchet up protein, ratchet up fat, you can ratchet up and down calories, you can play around those things. But again, for me, look, I'm doing a lot of high intensity glycolytic short-term sprinting stuff, and so often I will find that I have to keep my fat percentage up relatively high. Not necessarily, the typical ketogenic macros of 80% fat or something like. I'm not chugging butter or drinking MCT oil or trying not to get my fat up. I get that, through fattier cuts of meat, typically ribeye steaks. Some days I will go leaner and it'll be more protein based. And so I'll eat the things like the leaner cuts of meat, some of the fish and stuff like that. And it kind of naturally, I get a natural pattern where, my 2 or 3 more days I might be kind of leanish, and then I'll really feel that I need to really up the animal fats. And I think you have to be responsive to that. You have to become intuitive to that. It takes a while to figure this stuff out. Right now, I can pretty much, again, I talk about being metabolically healthy and being not metabolically healthy, which most people, unfortunately, are not metabolically healthy. And so then you've got all these messed up hunger signals. You've got all these hormonal responses that are probably not well adapted. But once you get in a position where, you're metabolically responding like a normal, healthy human being would, say, a 20-year-old. Back when you're 20, you're relatively, healthy. Again, unfortunately, we have so many 20-year-olds that aren't healthy anymore. But once you get into that position, then I think your body responds pretty well as advertised. You can do things to manipulate calories up and down, protein and fat up and down, and get away with that pretty well. So, again, it's tough to give general guidelines here. I think most humans, again, in the absence of carbohydrates, do pretty well with fat somewhere in that 60 to 80% range. I think that's pretty good. You might be able to get away with a little leaner for a period of time, not for a long period of times, but maybe a few weeks, maybe a little bit longer or even shorter. You can get away with the higher protein, lower fat days. And I think that is something that can be utilized as a tool. Long term, it's very nice to be able to, listen to your body, to figure out what it needs. It'll tell you if you know, and a lot of times you'll see something. I mean, it's, you'll see something that's very appealing. And I know we all look at chocolate cake and say, well, it looks really good. But I mean, what I'm talking about when we're talking to animal products, and we can look at things that are, fattier cuts of meat, and sometimes that'll be very appealing. And I think there's a reason for that. And there's some times where the fat is like, I don't want the fat. I feel nauseous. I don't feel good. Then don't eat it. I mean, that's the simplest answer there. I get a lot of people that say they are turned off by, the fat on a ribeye or the end, and they cut it off. That's okay, if that's what's happening. But eventually, again, as you get leaner, as you get more metabolically healthy, as you rely more on fat, probably you'll find that becomes more appealing. Now, again, this isn't a 100% prescription for everybody, but those are general things, and all we have is really generalities. I think that's all I want to say on this subject today. Well, there's lots of things. I know people wanted me to talk about gallbladder, wanted me to talk about digestive stuff, diarrhea, constipation. There's all kinds of other things. We can talk about cholesterol. We can talk about thyroid. We can talk about specific athletic endeavors. Those things are all lots of neat topics. We're learning a lot more. Again, I think a lot of this comes through one of the reasons people are getting healthy. The main reasons, I think, are they tend to fix the gut, particularly gut permeability. They also tend to help with insulin, based on what we know now. And again, we don't know it all now. There may be more things that come out down the road. So these are all the speculations based on what we know now. As we learn more, we learn more. And we'll do that. I'll share more as I learn more. Personal consultations. If you guys want to spend an hour with me chatting about what your goals are, I'm happy to do that. I'll put a link for that What else is there? Our HBO podcast, I talked about that yesterday. Going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to getting Jason Fung on the line. Well, Mike Eads is going to be fun to talk to as well, but I want to pick Jason's brain a little bit more about fasting and when it's not appropriate. And I think there's, I think for certain people it's more appropriate than others. I don't do it. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't fast. I don't fast with a stopwatch. I don't eat very frequently. I mean, some days I'll eat 3 or 4 meals a day, depending on what's going on, and I'm responding to my appetite. But many days, in fact, most days, my meal frequency is once or twice a day, and that's just what's happening naturally. And I think that sort of pattern, of eating when you're hungry and eventually developing a sort of an appetite that is less frequent for meals. I think that works out pretty well. So intermittent feasting. But Jason Fung and I will have a nice chat about that, and we'll talk about some of the ins and outs of that stuff. All right, guys, check out meatheals.com. Just spread that word with people. Share these videos with people that you think might be helped by this. Again, I'm always happy to talk to people one-on-one if they want to spend the time. What else? HBO podcast. Instagram. I got my Instagram stuff, my Twitter stuff. I'm just out there putting out the stuff every day, trying to get the message out there. There's a big counter message. Everybody wants us to go plant-based. There's 24/7 propaganda going out there. Much of it is wrong. Much of it's distorted. And there are people that are committed to doing that, and they're on it every day. So we have to, sort of be equally as diligent on trying to set the record straight. And I think that is what I'm trying to do and what others are trying to do, and I appreciate that. All right, guys, I appreciate your subscriptions. I appreciate your support. And I will continue to try to get more of this information out there. Hopefully, like I said, I'm really hoping, I think Chris Bell and I are going to do something kind of live, like a kind of an event here in the near future. We can kind of meet people in person. That always makes me happy to get to meet the people out here that have questions or are benefiting or even are struggling, so we can kind of help them out. All right, guys, Carnivore Diet. Take care, guys. Talk to you next time.